Hello, and welcome to the Loudcast with me, your host, Kevin McLean. It has been a few weeks since last we were here. I needed some time off, but we're back with another awesome episode of the Loudcast just for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether that's on YouTube or wherever you download your podcasts. If you are tuning in for the first time, we hope you enjoy it. Please hit that like and subscribe buttons down below, or follow us on your podcast platform. We would massively appreciate it. We are back this week with more poetry, with another incredible guest in the way of Sarah Grant. And I'm not going to mess about. I'm going to get stuck right in with one of my favourite poems from our run at the Storytelling Centre since we moved our shows there in 2018. One of the first shows in September 2018. Jeez. That feels like forever ago. We had Dagogo Hart, who is an incredible Irish-based poet. We managed to bring him over for the show, which was a huge deal for us. We were incredibly excited to have him, and we released this video of his quite a while ago. It's a poem called Legendary, and it's truly spectacular. So check it out, guys, and I will be back with you in a sec.
When we are long gone, and our names only remain on tombstones and in the minds of ex-lovers, let it be said that we were here, that we painted these streets the color of raised dust and rose red, and the sun never caught us in bed, except Sunday mornings with new loves. When we are long gone, with caskets now too big for our bones, and no weights on these shoulders except these 6 feet of unraised dust. Let it be said that we were alive once, that we raised the bar till it touched the sky. We broke down Jericho's walls and built Rome twice in 2 nights because we were legendary. And we are long gone. And our stories are semi-fictions in the mouths of old gypsy women, tar stains on the great white lies of society. And our names are more famous than our faces because the revolution will not be televised. Let it be said that we are not dead, that we live on through these words that we speak tonight. This is our truth, our story, our tale, our war cry. This is our lives. And no, we are not immortals, but we are infinite, unending, passed down from mothers to sons and fathers to daughters. So when they say we are long gone, ancient history, a thing of the past, let us leave something behind to stand in our defense, be words or art or music, or life saved, even if it is our own, or love. Let the people know we are more than ourselves, more than instruments for entertainment. We are both hands of God, creating life out of the darkness that the world has placed before us. So when they say, where did you come from? Tell them nowhere. We've been right here all along.
And that was Dagogo Hart with Legendary, with musical accompaniment from the always fantastic Jack Hinks. What an incredible piece. Dagogo is a truly standout performer. We were lucky enough, like I said, to bring him over from Ireland, and that was in no small part due to a hookup with Boundless and Bear. And if you're looking for Irish poetry, I would absolutely advise you to check them out. I'll stick a description below, but Melissa Ridge does an incredible job detailing all the spoken word that's going on in Ireland, releasing zines and stuff, so I know that you should absolutely check them out. But we're going to keep rolling with this episode of the Loudcast, and since we've got Sarah Grant on as our guest, and she is an incredible filmmaker, we thought we'd throw in a little film piece here, and I thought, since, talking to a proper filmmaker, I'd try and show that I know a little about what I'm talking about. And this was actually the first piece that I ever sort of did a concept and directed, by myself. I say by myself, Perry was there. I'm not a fool. But yeah, so this is the sort of first piece that I kind of got my directorial claws into. And it's actually one of my poems, Loud Lotto, which we did for our 2017 Fringe show. Time is a blur. It stars Katie Ailes, who is an incredible poet in her own right and a member of Loud Poets. But in this particular video, she takes on a whole new persona. So check it out.
And now for the Ministry of Peace and Quiet's National Lotto Draw. I won the very first time I played, and while yes, I was technically underage, it was still me that put pen to page and wrote numbers down. I won £10, promptly spent it on toys, Cyclops from the X-Men classic blue and yellow, but of course. This was back in the past when you had a 1 in 14 million chance of hitting that sweet jackpot cash. The odds have slipped somewhat since then. 24 years of box tick, pink slip crushed into hand. I don't choose to stop until I'm a 30-year-old man. In the weeks after the last time I played, I convinced myself I'm okay. 42 days slip past before I tune into the live draw broadcast and receive a bonus ball gut blast. All my numbers there. 50 million. Double rollover. Lost chance. Loud Lotto. You pay a price to win the prize.
And that was me with Loud Lotto. Big thanks to Katie Ailes for being in the video. It was a look that she did not want to take off, and I'm sure it will surface again at some point. Badass looking in a suit. Good job, Kate. So yeah, that was my attempt at making a film, and I don't know, we're going to get a much better filmmaker on in a bit to chat about it and stuff. It'll be totally fine. We'll check out more of her stuff. I'll put links and all that so you can see some better film work. But for now, we're going to look at one more video, and that is this week's live performance video, and it's one I'm really excited to share with you guys. It's from a favourite poet of mine, Emma Atkin, who doesn't get anywhere near the credit she deserves or sort of exposure she deserves as a writer and performer. And this is a piece called I Hope I Lose.
We're having crisis whiskey at midnight. Sat in solemn conclave, our hearts beating fast in moral quandary. From where we sit, we can see our home. Grey granite rises out of Piccadilly Place, a moment of calm among traffic lights and tram lines. We are not calm. Hence the whiskey. He says, don't you feel it burn within you? He doesn't mean the whiskey. This we know. Silence is golden in this household. We file to supper with our voices low. You see the truth about someone when their head is bowed. There is comfort in saying the same thing and meaning it, smoke-filled afternoons. My heart leaps at a chance in my daily bread. He says, I would give up everything for this. And I wonder if I could. We clink glasses and bump knees. I say, I don't think I've been lying, but I've been waiting for something bigger than this. Waiting for a gun start in the rest of my life, and I kneel before the shoulder of my greatest grandmother, and I pray she is what I'm called to. But I don't know. I've started going to carpenters for advice. And they tell me, lay down your tools and listen. It's not quite follow me, but it could be. And the only thing I'm scared of is the fact I'm not afraid. Have you ever tried to give away everything you've longed for? This is the first time I've thought that I could. It's the first time I've thought it could be easy. All my life I've hated people telling me they're right about me. Even when most of the time they are, I have been billeted and leafleted, I've been moulded and made. I am right or so wrong, depending on how you think you know me. Damn well no one knows me. I don't even know myself. And I say I've not been fighting, but maybe I've been fighting. Maybe I've been fighting this whole time. My asking asks more than it answers. We are all of us ready to run, but mothers tell me, wait. Fathers tell him, wait. We tell him, wait. See through an act of patience. Run the good race to the end, kneel before the one who loves us best, all in good time. If it is really meant to be, it will not go away. And when we go away, we practice patience across oceans. Thumb our ways through the decades, paint our desires onto wood and canvas and envelopes pelicans on the table. Bleeding for the suns we may never see, and on the steps in the dark, he tells me something else is on the horizon, something different. And I tell him that is the whole point. It doesn't matter what appears when the dawn breaks. What matters is the fact the sun is rising at all. And by that light we see everything else. We keep walking till we get there. I'm still walking. I haven't even started. I wait for long nights and winter snows to bring me clarity. Until then, we drink whiskey and we paint. And we prophesy, and I spend my days wrestling with God. You might ask me how I could ever hope to win, and I would tell you I don't. I really hope I lose.
And that was Emma Atkin with I Hope I Lose. Tremendous piece. I'm really looking forward to chatting a bit about it because I've got a great guest in to do that with. I'm so excited to have her on the Loudcast. She's one of my favourite people. She's a filmmaker, a writer. I've seen her doing paintings this week on Facebook, which has annoyed me. I don't like multi-talented people. Please give it up for Sarah Grant!
Hi!
How are you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing very well, and I'm so buzzed to actually be on the Loudcast. It's been one of the only things that I can actually set my clock by on during lockdown. It's been the highlight of my week, so I'm very happy to be here.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I'm sorry we've been off for the last few weeks then. I hit that wall in lockdown where I was like, yeah, this is too much.
Oh man, it is so real. It's so difficult. Like, you can have a really productive week and then just feel like all you can do is count the notches in your ceiling, like, you know, the little bubbly painty bits and stuff. Maybe I just live in a really old flat.
No, I'm now looking up and trying to assess. That would be a new project. Good. How's your lockdown life been treating you? Are you working at the minute still?
Yeah, it's been good. I'm still working. I work for Napier University for the marketing team. So if anything, I've got more busy because we're having to change all our campaigns, especially things like clearing, because the exams are like kids who are doing their exams just now. That's all up in the air, and like getting their acceptance to uni and things. So there's just lots of work for me, but I usually commute to Edinburgh from Glasgow, so it's been really, really refreshing to not have to commute. So the extra work that I have is balanced out by all this energy that I have from not having to spend 3 hours a day in a car, so it balances out.
That does make a difference, and not for the first time, Sarah. I'm just going to say move to Edinburgh. Just
Yeah.
move to Edinburgh. Just come to Edinburgh. It'll be fine.
Oh, I've not heard you say that in a while. I've missed that.
My constant hassling of you to do what makes it easier for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's lovely to have you here, breaking up the monotonous stretch of time that lies before us. It's a bleak start, and I'm off my game. But we're here talking poems, and that's what it's about. So we're chatting about Emma Atkin. Have you met Emma?
No, it was like the best experience ever when I went onto Patreon today to watch Emma's poem, because I've never met Emma before. I wasn't aware of Emma, so it was Christmas because I got to discover her and her work for the first time, and like that's such a lovely feeling because I know quite a lot of the poets that are working in Scotland just now, so it was amazing to get to meet somebody new, I guess.
Totally. I think it's one of those weird things that especially Edinburgh over the last couple of years, a lot of the open mics disappeared and stuff like that, and it's like we've got this huge pool of people who came up through the student poetry scenes and the student open mics, and then there's no gigs for them to do or anything, so you see someone like Emma who I saw all the time at Soapbox, which is the Edinburgh Uni open mic, and then she just kind of like disappeared, and it's because spoken word, there's no gigs, there's no paid gigs and stuff. So,
yeah.
I always get annoyed because we bring see this like amazing writer, amazing performer, and then cool, we'll see you again in 6 months too.
Yeah, I was
Awesome.
actually annoyed at myself how I was just like, how have I never come across this person? I've clearly not been paying attention. But if they're, like you said, like if she's in Edinburgh and there's not that many choices to perform, like with the open mics being gone, then yeah, when would she get a chance?
It's a bit of a pity, but yeah, I'm always hassling her to show up more. I think she took a bit of time off as well, just like, you know, kind of other focuses, so she wasn't looking to, you know, when the things aren't there to do, you stop looking to do them.
Yeah.
We got her back in last Fringe for the Best of Fringe run that we did, and that I think been the first gig she'd done in a year or so. Or no, it wasn't even Fringe. It was when we were doing our Bohemia open mics, and I hit her up to be like, come and do poems. And so she
I loved the Bohemia open mics because, again, like you said, so many people who hadn't been given the chance just came out. I met people like Carl Anderson and Freya and so many poets who I'd never met before. I met through going to the Bohemia open mics, so it was brilliant.
It'd be nice when we can go back to gigs.
Yeah, I miss gigs.
Outside, you know. But yeah, what did you think of the poem? Because I got a lot of thoughts, but I'm not a great poetry brain. What were you on it?
Well, so because I knew I was going to be talking about it, I was watching it going, okay, be smart, think things. So I was like, I started watching it and I was like trying to really pick apart her language. I noticed that she uses alliteration a lot, but within the first 20 seconds, it all fell apart and I was just kind of transported. And at the end of it, I was like, oh no, I don't have anything specifically to kind of like, you know, talk about in terms of like bringing up phraseology. But I just was like, no, this is actually better. She completely transported me. And there was so much that I didn't get from like, you know, her story, but I was transported like to like a very, very real place, and it was tied into your physical location, it's tied into home, it's tied into where you are in your career and wanting more but not wanting more and making those big choices, and those are really, really real things, and to have them described and linked so clearly to the physical aspect of home and things like sharing whiskey with a partner and talking about things and having like the turns in conversation that came up in the poem, it was incredible. It was completely seamless for me.
It's one of those. It's interesting you say, you know, and I do a similar thing, you know, when either for the podcast but just in general when I'm looking at spoken word poetry, I look for wordsmithery, complex rhyme structures, sound assonance, all that sort of stuff, because that's what, you know, like we're I think fairly similar stylistically in our spoken word.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Where, you know, it's sort of condensed narrative, lots of wordplay, all that sort of stuff. And Emma's kind of like an outlier for, I would still very much deem her a spoken word poet, because, you know, she's it's not a villanelle, or, you know, it's like less overt structure, like literary structure. But what she does is, it's almost like prose poetry, right? Where she's not doing all this like complex rhyme structures or whatever, but the metaphors themselves and the language and the pace and her because I always describe her as an incredible performer, a sort of understated performance. You know, like being an incredible performer doesn't mean everyone has to be running out in the crowd shouting and, you know, going crazy. Like you can be an incredible performer in the way that you approach something calmly and with a level of control. Or like one thing Emma does better than a lot of people I see is she reads everything like it's being read for the first time. There's a bit in that poem, I can't remember the exact line, where she sort of laughs at herself in it, and it's a hard thing to do genuinely and make it seem, you know, that's your actual reaction to saying those words, because you've written it and then you've learned it and then you've read it out loud a bunch of times. So like, when I talk about performance and stuff, it's very understated and not maybe what people would think or look for in terms of spoken word or performance poetry, but I think it absolutely fits in, and thematically it's super interesting what she's doing. You know, like I find poetry about sort of faith and family and home like the most compelling stuff,
because it's tangible, you can touch it, like
I think it's the biggest internal conflicts. I think why, like, it's a similar reason why love poetry just really resonates with me, is it's you can when it's something so big and so emotional and so internal, like faith or love or you know, those familial connections, they're like unbreakable things. They're things not based in rationality or you know, choice. They're things based in emotion. So like I think they lend themselves to poetry really well.
She reminded me.
Written faith stuff?
Any written what? Sorry.
Any like faith stuff? Because I know, like, even from like a secular point of view, I find like faith poetry quite interesting.
Not really. When anytime it kind of comes to talks about kind of faith and theology, for me, I end up talking myself round in circles because I have that, because I live with my partner Dev, who is extremely interested in all things space and physics and science and thinking, and he's read the Order of Time, and during lockdown he's powered through so many books kind of about science, and then he learns something, just sits back for a little bit, and then he tries to explain it to me, and I'm like, that's plenty. I can't deal, because like I can't wrap my head around those kind of concepts without the void overtaking my entire being. So
100%.
so like I don't like thinking about it, but I do like thinking about it in a very small way, if that kind of makes sense. So I think I haven't found a way, and if I did, it would definitely be through poetry, but I haven't really found a way to connect the infinite and the ideology of like science and faith and ideas and what I believe is kind of out there to explain it in a right way. And the only way I can explain things is through my own frame of reference. So it would be through it'd be like through small stories of things that have happened to me. I haven't really been able to pair those, but it is definitely something I'd like to tackle at one point, but I just don't know my own brain well enough right now. Maybe one day.
But then that's bang on, I think, to what like Emma is looking at doing that piece. Is
Absolutely.
The small nature of faith. Like I love the line, I'm going to misquote it obviously, but you can tell a lot about someone when their head is bowed. And stuff, the connotations to that of like you see a real person in prayer and stuff, or like, you know, when she's referring to like asking a carpenter for advice.
Oh yeah, I love that.
She downplays it and makes it this small thing of like, I've started asking carpenters for advice, but that's someone openly saying, I am on this path looking for, you know, for an idea into what faith is and what that looks like. It totally appeals to me, that idea of you know, stripping it down and bringing it into those sort of small moments, like.
It's so funny. I've watched the video of the performance 3 times in the last couple of hours, and I couldn't pick out a single line, because anytime I even tried to focus, it was just all like part of a wider narrative. It's funny that you say understated, and that reminds me weirdly enough of a bit in Glee, which the weirdest thing, and it was it's when Idina Menzel was on it, and she was trying to teach the people about theatricality, and it was about being very understated, and she says theatricality is standing still and letting your performance set yourself on fire, and it's so understated. And I was like, that's what she does. That's absolutely what she does. She hardly said anything. Also, she has this absolute beautiful way of performing, as if like the audience is just letting her ramble. You know, when someone starts going, I think I remember this one thing when I was younger, and then you just let them talk, and like they start on the memory, and then something else jumps out, and then a little bit of information that's important but not important creeps in, and you think it's going one way and it's not, and it's just them kind of almost figuring it out. Like you said, like she's reading it for the first time, but I don't even get that she's reading. I get it that she's recalling it for the first time, or these are the thoughts that she's having for the first time. So yeah, it was astounding.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I'm so glad you hadn't seen her before. That's always like the best thing, right? When you can find someone that you've not seen that
exactly
resonates that strongly with you. That's awesome.
You know, when you kind of like, there's something you really love, and then you find out that someone is watching it for the first time, and you have a little bit of envy, because you're like, I want to know that, like the fact that you're getting that feeling again. I was very aware that I was getting that feeling watching Emma for the first time.
That's awesome. I'm so glad. Yeah. So for peeps at home, please do check out the Emma Atkin video. You can go and watch it again, either in this podcast or on our YouTube channel. Please do go and check it out. But yeah, we're going to be chatting about Sarah and what you're up to with your poetry and all the other many types of art you take part in. You frustrate me, Sarah Grant. But like, you've not been writing that long, really, have you?
No, not at all. I fell down a well with spoken word poetry. I went from writing nothing to writing everything, and it was because it would have been in 2016. I was lucky enough to be in an art scholarship making an animation at the time, so I wasn't in full-time employment. The first time that's ever happened, I've been able to work on art full-time, and it was great. But it meant that what happened before was when I would be working full-time and I'd have colleagues, and then I'd be trying to push forward as much as I could with my work in film. So I would be making films with my team, and most of my team were my close friends, and whether that happened before or after, it didn't really matter. We'd kind of blended into this one group, and so yeah, and it just meant I was seeing them kind of all the time, and I was just aware that I couldn't really, because I wasn't used to thinking about my free time as free time was film time. I was spending so much time just constantly trying to, make films and be part of a scene that was in a way quite toxic. Lots of people in their fresh graduates in their early 20s, it's a very male dominated scene, and a lot of it is about people can't afford to make films, so in conversation it's about who can talk loudly about the film they're planning to make but they never go around to. It could be quite toxic, and I was getting really, really bogged down with it. And I remember thinking to myself like that, saying, I need to make new friends. And not because my old one was, I was just my scene had been my entire life, was becoming my entire life, and I knew that I needed some sort of fresh perspective that I would get if I was working somewhere, that I'd be with my colleagues. And I'd always loved watching spoken word poetry that came in from the States. And I'd actually looked for spoken word poetry nights, and I hadn't come across the Loud Poets at all. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just not a thing in Scotland, because I didn't think it would translate to our accent. I thought it would sound bad. And weirdly enough, I had actually tried to pursue this and couldn't find any nights, which is really weird. I don't know where I was looking. I was Googling spoken word poetry nights in Scotland, and nothing.
SEO trying to figure that out. It's bleak.
It's so bleak, and I couldn't find it. And then weirdly enough, I seen on Facebook someone who I like vaguely knew, being like, is there any such thing as poetry nights in Scotland? And then someone went, yes, there's Loud Poets, there's In Deep, there's Noiriki, there was lots of examples, and I was like, what the hell, where'd these come from? And then I kind of saw that came to the Loud Poets Facebook page, and then I realised there was a night that week, and I just grabbed Dev, and we weren't together at that point. I was like, you're coming with me, we're going along to see this thing. And then that was it. I went there and loved the night so much, and felt so welcome with the types of writing that I didn't hesitate at all to think, I can do this is something I can absolutely do, and it's a welcoming space, and I'd never found that before. So it was very, very nice.
That's crazy. What sort of year was that? That must have been
late 2016. I think it would have been, I think it would have been the December gig. Remember you did a series of 3 slams over winter? I think it was November, December, January.
Yeah.
I came to the December one, and then I performed and got to the final of the January one.
That's it, yeah. And because you came to that gig at the SPL as well, the Scottish Poetry Library.
Yeah.
We did a CD launch thing. It's great, that's such a crazy jump, that's such a scary thing to a lot of people. People who don't do performance or sort of, art where it's established that you're going to get so many rejections and critique and da-da-da. That seems scary. But even then, saying to an artist who's put a lot of time and effort into building, your brand and your skill set and your equipment, that's, money and time and effort and passion gone in, to be like, okay, I'm going to, maybe not never come back to the thing I'm doing, but I'm going to take a break from that and go and try and pursue something that I have no stake in, no, sort of foothold in. That's a really brave move.
Yeah, it was, well, the thing is, I wasn't getting anywhere. I was funded to make this one film, and it just didn't feel like I wasn't, there wasn't really anything to lose, to be honest. There was no funding going around. There was crowdfunded stuff, and I'd crowdfunded like the year before, and I kind of figured that if I want to crowdfund, I need to keep it in my back pocket for something else. People won't fund my films every year, so I gotta get good at either writing applications, which hasn't happened, or I gotta get good at being able to make this on a micro budget. And this was something else. Also, like, by this point, I hadn't performed. I dabbled with stand-up comedy when I was in uni, and I hated it. It was, again, a really, really toxic environment. I've never met so many insecure men in my entire life, and also the audiences.
Supportive world for new people, especially if they, for women or whatever.
I just think it is really like insecure. Like the entire ethos around it is like me, find me funny and stuff, and that's feeding a not very great aspect of yourself in terms of your self-esteem. And also the audience is that as well. The audience will sit back at a comedy night and be like, impress me, or else I get to kind of heckle. Whereas poetry, and I think this is probably why I felt so confident going in, is because I was aware of the difference of the comedy audience to the loud poet audience, or like the spoken word audiences. That as soon as I got there, I realized that the audience weren't saying impress me, they were saying tell me something. And
well, that's a really nice way to put it.
Yeah, they were saying tell me something, so they were there to listen, and the poets on stage were not saying like me, they were saying listen to me. And it was just such a more giving space, I guess, for stories. And for someone who it takes minimum a year from having an idea to anything coming together to tell a story, and even then there's so many hoops you have to jump through and compromises that is usually money that you have to make, to be able to kind of see someone who could actually just have that turnaround and that connection with the audience and tell those stories almost on an instantaneous basis. It was a light bulb moment for me. I was like, this is excellent.
I mean, it's one of those things where I'm always staggered that, it isn't a bigger field of interest for, like I compare to, when I was a kid, I grew up in a very sort of disenfranchised area. I grew up very poor, and so I wasn't going to be doing a very expensive hobby, and like, so when I was younger, youth was like the least expensive hobby you could take part in, right? Because you don't need equipment. You can just go to the place and play games and come up with scenes and do all the stuff. So like, I'm surprised spoken word doesn't fill that niche more, because there's no more accessible art form than spoken word. You don't need even compared to theatre or whatever, you don't need someone else's script, you don't need a stage, you don't need anything. You just need like the words in your head, which is a massively liberating experience, to be like, you can have full control and ownership and responsibility for your work, and it represents you and whatever you want to say with it, which is like the best thing possible for young creatives. Like I always think it must be an incredibly strong grounding in creative discipline, like in general, to be like, okay, as a young person that wants to learn how to be a creative, this will teach you how to write, how to edit, how to perform, how to, all those kind of integral pieces.
Exactly. There's so much that you can get from spoken word that can be applied to that in fields that has absolutely nothing to do with poetry. If you can kind of come in and confidently talk about yourself in a job interview, that you can get that from poetry. You can succinctly turn a phrase for your CV. I mean, poets play with language. That's what they do. They play with language. So it's being able to take what you want to say and compress it into something that is authentic and succinct, but also can also put across a very clear tone of voice, which you don't get taught about. You in creative writing, you learn a lot about form, but not about voice. Is there anything better than teaching like teenagers who are, especially teenage girls, like I'll say this, is that teenage girls are the most hated group of people on the planet. Like these girls are being taught like through the media and all that what they like and who they are is stupid and ridiculous and petty. Is there any other group of people who needs more to be taught that their voice is valid and this is how you use it?
100%. It's crazy what you say about form and the obsession with form in writing for some reason. It's crazy. Like I was having this genuinely, finally I got to go and visit someone. So I went to see my dad, and we were chatting, just catching up. And Kate was talking, we were chatting about poetry with him and stuff like that. And we brought up villanelles, because she'd been working with someone on a villanelle.
Yeah.
And she was editing a pamphlet, and so talking about villanelles, and Dad was like, what's that? And we kind of explained this complex structure of repeated lines and rhyming structure and stuff, and he went, why would you do that? Like, why would you write it like that then?
Yeah.
And I was going, that's a very good point, Dad. Like, other than if you're like, form and structure is great for if you don't have something just to say, you know what I mean? Like, you've been writing for years, and you don't just have that burning thing to get off your chest. So a form or a structure can help you work through and find something.
Absolutely.
Almost act as but like, it shouldn't be the be all and end all of creativity. Like, form in itself is limiting, you know what I mean? Like, by its very nature. Yeah,
exactly. That's literally what it is. It's restrictions. It's kind of restrictions, and sometimes that's good. I mean, I'll compare it to I do the 48-hour film challenge quite a lot, and sometimes when you get a quite obscure genre, it's actually better if you pull a detective cop genre and you're like, okay, that's exactly what I have to do. But if you pull comedy, that's massive. You can do so much. And sometimes when you're trying to get an idea down really quickly and get it down to its bare bones, the idea of comedy is too large. So sometimes going to a form and being like, I can write literally anything by this point. Having a form can strip that back a little bit and give you a better starting point, or being able to get to the idea by stripping out everything else that it could possibly be. But that shouldn't come first. That shouldn't be, and that is what's taught in schools. You teach that poetry is this. It is this. From what I remember of poetry in school anyway, poetry is this. It's A-B, like structure, or it's not, but then if it's not, there has to be a pretty good reason. It's mad. It's absolutely mad. It's extremely overanalyzed.
When I was back in high school, if I had seen Emma's poem, I would have been like, that's not a poem.
Yeah.
Because, what doesn't rhyme, and where's the, what kind of poem is it then? Is it and you're going, creativity should form should be there, as a backup to give you a guide if you want it, if you need that, if you're looking for a little extra input. But this idea that somehow things without form or structure don't have the same creative worth as things that do just boggles my mind. But you brought up the 48-hour film festival there, and you're talking about, obviously, you've done a lot of film work, prior to coming into the poetry scene. But you didn't abandon that. You're still doing a lot of film work, yeah?
Funnily enough, I actually did abandon it. I had a really bad experience, or it wasn't even it wasn't a bad, I went to a film festival, and it wasn't even a bad festival. There was great films there, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back. There was 20 films there, and there were 20 filmmakers that were asked up on stage, and they were all white men, and the question was being asked by a white man, but he was meant to be co-hosting, and his co-host was a woman in a sparkly dress, and all she did was run around and pass the microphones places, and all the films there, and there were female made films in there. It's just that they weren't shown and it wasn't acknowledged, and I was just like, I am so done, and I got so disheartened. I actually left crying because I was like, I'm fighting a losing battle. I put so much of my time and my energy, my heart and soul into making independent film in Scotland, and I'm just shown time and time and time again that there's no place for me. So I did actually give up, but it kind of took making Scare for the 48-hour to shock me back into it. That made me kind of go, I actually do have something to say. And I owe poetry a lot to that, because it was because before that I had never put myself in front of the camera, and I would never have had the confidence if I hadn't been performing poetry on stage. And I started with a monologue.
That boggles my mind. You're such a performer. I mean that in the nicest way. You're someone that, when I first saw you perform poetry, I assumed you had been in films. I assumed you were filmmaker / actor.
No, I definitely kind of had the writer-director banner, and I didn't like straying away from that, which is absolutely bananas.
Wow.
And so I kind of got in this habit where I had have a kind of writing partnership with my best friend and actor Katrina, who I know you've met before, and Katrina's incredibly talented, but I just kind of was like, I want to write as me, a writer with my voice, and Katrina can pretty much always be able to bring to life these characters and these stories that I can write. And that was a great relationship that we have, and we still do have. But I didn't realise that I was cutting off so much of my own capacity for stories, because there are things that I can talk about that I want to talk about that Katrina just can't pull off. I mean, I can talk a lot about being a working class person from like an underclass area in Glasgow. That's not something that that it would be a real stretch for Katrina to like try and bring that to life. And also my experience as a plus size woman on stage and in the public eye, that's something that Katrina can't bring to life, and those are really important aspects of my life and therefore my writing. So I just felt that once I kind of had that confidence, and this is why I loved poetry so much, because there's so many stories that I had that I thought they just don't belong on film. So like when I was younger, I had braces for 7 years. Like I had mangled teeth. I looked like, if you took an x-ray of my skull, it looked like a bag of Scrabble tiles. It was a mess. Like I had 7 extra teeth, and about 6 of them were the front ones. It was brilliant. And that formed me as a person more than anyone will ever know, but there was no way to put that in a film. But then of course bring a poem, and I was like, I can just have a ramble for 3 minutes about my teeth, and I have, and that was great. And I kind of at the end of it, I was like, I've told that story, and that was really, really great to have that, to be able to do that. It was really great to do that. So yeah, and then it just meant that I'd had the confidence to start telling other stories, and Scare was one that I did on my own. So I wrote, directed, starred, edited. The only help I had was Dev was camera assistant whenever he had to push the button if I was in front of the camera, and also he sat in when I was setting up a shot. And my friend Lindsay, who was an absolute hero, because the competition was the weekend of the Eurovision Song Contest, and she's a big Eurovision fan. So she went to a Eurovision, I was working on the Saturday, then went to a Eurovision party, and then rolled into my house at like 10 in the morning, still drunk, being like, let me colour this film, and she did. And I was like, you absolute legend. So
Scare blew me away when I saw it. I'll link, there'll be up in the eye in the corner.
Thank you.
I'll link it because it's on YouTube, right?
Yes.
So I absolutely stunning, and to know when you watch it, like, I always love that. I love knowing what's gone into a thing, right? And when you realise something like that looks so great, has such a wonderful story behind it, performed so well, and you realise the one person did all that, it just adds to the level that that you managed to take it to.
In 48 hours, it was a trial, but it was. I felt that I had something to say. It was the Scare, the kind of story is about someone who thinks that they're pregnant, and it's what goes through your head when you're taking a pregnancy test. And this was around about the time that everything was going on with the laws in Alabama and in Northern Ireland. And I really wanted to have commentary on that. And one of the reasons I did it by myself was because I was like, this might get backlash, and I don't want that backlash to fall on anyone else. The same way that I know that if there's backlash for a poem I'm doing, there's no one else that can take the fall for that. It's my words, me on stage, me saying that, and I wanted to have that same experience in the film, but I've had nothing but love and support for it, so it's been fantastic. And again, I don't think I would ever have done that if I hadn't done poetry. That definitely gave me the boost in confidence.
It's always inspiring, like, seeing the work you do, Sarah, and talking to you about it and stuff, because like it's you're very, very much a sort of fearless in your subject matters and stuff. You know what I mean? Like you do open yourself to I've seen the stuff you put out for BBC The Social and things like that, and a lot of the subjects you tackle, people can be horrific.
Oh, the comment section of my BBC Social videos, Jesus.
Yeah, and like that's that's a lot to take from someone who's just trying to make art that they care about. Like, well, you shouldn't have to experience that level of abuse back because of it.
It was so funny. The one I did most recently was actually a poetry video for my poem Dear Hermione, which is it's a crowd pleaser. Like it's my most popular, or most requested one, and it's a love letter to Hermione Granger. And I love the Harry Potter books, and I would say that Hermione as a character and reading those books really kind of gave me a bit of sense of self sort of thing, but at the same time I can in the same breath say that I completely disagree with J.K. Rowling's stance on her on being like a gender critical feminist and her kind of opposing of trans rights. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this, because do I feel like I can't have Harry Potter? I need to give up Harry Potter to like as this. But anyway, so I wanted to kind of like, you know, address that. So I changed one line in the poem. And it was one that was already there, and it was for Hermione, and I changed it from you never changed who you were in order to fit in, and in a world full of Bella Swans I needed to hear that. And I changed that line to you never let anyone tell you that who you are is wrong, and in a world full of JKRs I needed to hear that, or we all needed to hear that. So it was just one line that made me say that I still love Hermione and everything there, but I stand with trans people. I'm a staunch trans ally. And so I was ready for so much backlash. I was told to be prepared for the backlash from TERFs and whatnot. So I was told that, and the only nasty comment I got on it was someone saying, "What is it with fat people in fantasy books?" I was like, come on! I was prepared for the other thing. But
you look at comments like that and you go, way to miss the point of the thing, man. Like,
oh.
Come on.
It's something else. I was asked to do one about the Oscars and why there are no women in the Oscars, and I was like, I don't want to just be someone yelling on the internet about there should be more women in the Oscars. So I did a critical look and and explained how Oscars films are chosen and how it's systemic and the voting, and I just explained everything that was there. And oh my god, angry butthurt white men did not like what I had to say. But the funny thing is that someone was like, this is utter ridiculous, and then went off to go on a big rant, and then someone underneath was like, did you actually watch the video? Because your points, she addresses all of them. And he went, nah, turned it off after 10 seconds. And you're like, then don't comment. Oh my god.
Man, you're slamming your head into a wall. But I appreciate it. And the thing is, for every person that will leave a hateful comment or something ignorant, there will be a dozen people who got something positive and you know, cathartic and rewarding out of seeing the work that you put out there. So like,
absolutely. There's an element, and maybe this is me being a narcissistic wee arsehole, but at the same time, like, if people are going to leave those comments, then it's not for them, and content is not for everybody. Content has a desired audience. It's meant to kind of, like, maybe it changed a couple of minds, maybe it educated a couple of people, maybe it didn't. It doesn't matter. But if you're going to leave those kind of comments, it's not for you, and that's fine. So
it's like you brought up Eurovision. I'm not a huge fan of Eurovision. You know what I don't do though? I don't jump on social media and find every Eurovision post I can to leave hateful comments about how much I don't like Eurovision.
Exactly.
I just don't watch it. I just don't like.
That's it. Just don't watch it. Everyone yelling about free speech and stuff. That's the best thing about free speech. Choose not to watch it.
Exactly. But I don't want to keep you all day, Sarah, and I know we're going to have a little chat on the Loudcast Extra, and I really want to chat to you about bringing together the sort of poetry and the film aspect, because I know you did Spark, which is your sort of long-form solo show that you've been writing, and I know you released an exclusive sort of, you know, for a short time access to an amazing film that you made for it. Like, shooting that in your house was crazy. So I do want to get deep into that with you on the Loudcast Extra. But I was wondering if, before we leave this episode of the Loudcast, would you mind doing a wee poem for us?
Yes, absolutely. I've been extremely neglectful of my poetry writing in lockdown, but, you know, just sometimes you just don't really feel like you've got anything to write. Yeah. And I felt like that, but there has one that kind of came to my head kind of fully formed that I just sat down and wrote in one go, which hasn't happened in a long time. So I'd like to read that. But the thing is, like, I scribbled it down really quickly, so the writing is like disgraceful in my notebook. So I'm going to try and read my own writing. So this is called The Unwelcome Guest. The unwelcome guest laughs the loudest when you spill food down your top. Stops all conversation and draws attention to your sloppiness. She likes to think she is the entertainment, but she just has this habit of turning humiliation into theatre. The unwelcome guest knows exactly what's on everyone's plate at any one given time. No hand reaching for seconds or sharing a spoon can plate pushing around a piece of morsel escape her gaze, and she has a comment about every one of them tucked up her sleeve with a handkerchief like a lady, and we all know it. She wields manners like a carving knife, cutting you into bite-sized portions, turning you digestible. The unwelcome guest couldn't care less if you are hungry, if your throat is parched, thirsty for the limelight, for your turn in the conversation, the sweet, soothing honey balm of companionship and comments and community. The unwelcome guest doesn't eat anything, which makes everyone wonder why she's here. But she tips back the wine you chose so carefully and grits her teeth at the bitterness that comes with drowning, looks at you like it's your fault, like it's all in bad taste and you should have known better. The unwelcome guest dumps her napkin on the table and the curtain falls on tonight's production of Plain Fare, though you weren't quite done yet. You can still feel the sweat of rehearsal on the back of your neck and the burn in your wrist from opening the oven door smarts. And you put a lot into this, and you weren't ready to leave the table just yet. But you do. Lead your guests through to the chocolate mints left in the living room, and they all relax, loosen their belts, sleepily swirl your wine, and the sight is louder than a standing ovation. You decide that the dishes can wait until tomorrow. Tonight is time together. The unwelcome guest just sits in the corner and watches you laugh. You've managed to keep everyone from knowing she's there, but she's patient. You can see it in her stare, and as long as you keep inviting her in every single time, she'll wait. She is hungry too. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, Sarah.
Thank you.
I love that personification and stuff is one of my favourite tools in spoken word and poetry. That's really beautifully put together. I like that persona. Too, when you get one piece that kind of pours out of you.
Yeah, absolutely. That doesn't happen very much anymore. I kind of like have a thing. I think I'm toying with. I've got lots of half-written poems, which never used to happen, but does all the time now. The personification is one that, weirdly enough, I've never really done that much of before, but I seen a Loud Poet video of Hannah Lavery's poem Rage, and the way she personified rage, that really stuck with me. So I think there's definitely a lot of influence from Hannah's poem in that one.
Wow, that's cool. Hannah's amazing. I'll whack that up in the eye as well, so people can take a look.
It's so good.
I'm glad you mentioned that actually, because I'm trying to think like similar to something. I'm trying to, when you're you're a filmmaker trying to think of references for your stuff. You're like, what is that putting in my brain? Yeah, Hannah Lavery Rage. Wow, yeah, definitely.
It was funny. It was when she started talking about how her rage is this other person. I was like, I wonder if I have any other people. And I think, and it's expectation, like my own expectation of herself is my shadow. So, and that's, I think, where it kind of came from. Or it was like, going around the background, and then all of a sudden it was like, right, here we are. That's a thing.
Amazing. Well, Sarah, while sirens are going off in leaf around me, where can people find you? Where can they see more of your work online?
I'm on, my Twitter handle is sgrantcreative. My Instagram is sgcreative. You can find me at Facebook /Sarah Grant Creative. But all my work it's most cohesive on my website, which is www.sarahgrantcreative.com.
And I will be putting links in the description and all that, so that we can direct you towards all of Sarah's amazing work. And we will be continuing to chat to Sarah on the Loudcast Extra, which will go out on the I Am Loud Patreon channel. It's accessible to our $3 and up patrons. So come and get some extra good chat for just a tiny little fee that helps us keep the lights on here.
Become a Patreon. It's well worth it. I'm a Patreon, have been for ages. It is absolutely worth it for the content. Become a Patreon. Support the arts.
Best, Sarah. Well, that is all from this episode of the Loudcast, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Please like, subscribe, all that jazz. But for now, it is a goodbye from us. Sarah, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate it if you could hit the like button, if you could hit the subscribe button, and make sure to ring that bell icon so you don't miss any updates from us in the future. If you want to go that extra mile and support us a little further, we do have a Patreon channel with loads of exclusive goodies, and you can sign up for as little as $1 a month. We appreciate your help, guys, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.